This is KG5VSR5570, net control for this Dallas Racy's Skywarn net currently in progress. The National Weather Service still has a severe thunderstorm warning for southeast Dallas, although the storm is just about to move out of the county. We'll see if we'll probably wrap this up here in a few minutes. I'd like to check to see if there's any any radio officers who would like to keep us on the air. Please come now with your call sign phonetically. Okay, are there any EOCs or the National Weather Service who would like to see us remain on the air? Please come now with your call sign phonetically. Okay, I guess we'll wrap it up. Are there any stations wishing for us to keep the Racy's Skywarn net open? Please come now with your call sign phonetically and your unit number. Okay, nothing heard, and as expected, the severe thunderstorm warning has expired for Dallas County. So with that, we'll wrap it up. This is Kilo Golf 5, Victor Sierra Romeo 5570, net control station for the Dallas Radio Civil Emergency Service. This net has been alerted for the purpose of a Skywarn net. The participation of each station in this net has been greatly appreciated. We also appreciate the Dallas Amateur Radio Club and the Dallas County REACT for the use of their repeaters, as well as the Dallas Area Racy's Council. This frequency is returned to regular amateur operation at 2101 local, and this is KG5VSR 5570. Clear. Please stand by for repeater reset.
Stand by for reset. Racy's net terminated. Return to normal communications state.
This is N5BB, net control for Skynet. I'm not sure if my audio is working. Tony, NT5TM, this is N5BB. How is my audio?
It sounds slightly different than usual, but it's of normal volume and good quality. NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. I'm in McLean, Virginia, at a conference at a hotel, and I'm using Echolink on my mobile phone. Okay, let me start the net. Does anyone need to use the repeater before I start the net? This is N5BB, net control for Skynet. This is N5BB. My name is Bill. I'll be your net control station for this session of the Dallas Amateur Radio Club Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation. Comments and suggestions for the net.
W5FC.
Well, okay. Let's see. Stations with priority emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign, break, and their call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic at this time?
The time is 9:05 p.m.
Okay. This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to identify the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates at 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Stations via Echolink are also possible using a W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online at www.w5fc.org. You can now check in the net electronically going to the club website, w5fc.org. Look for tonight's Skynet announcement and click on the hot link to check in. We'll acknowledge you on the air, and don't worry if you want to check in via voice. We'll continue to use that too. All amateur radios are welcome. You do not need to be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. Tony, NT5TM, if you're still there, is it possible for you to handle the check-ins, including looking at the web form to see who's checked in on the web? Is that possible?
Yes, although I need just a minute to get set up for the web form, NT5TM.
Okay, let me go in and take check-ins on the air, and we'll get back to the web form in a couple of minutes, okay? So right now, let's look. I'm gonna do things a little out of order. So let's do right now short-time RF check-ins. If you'd like to check into the net and you can't stay here very long, please check in now. We need your call sign, your name, and your location. This is Skynet, N5BB Net Control, short-time check-ins.
Alpha India 5, Oscar Lima, Dan, Southwest Fort Worth.
Okay, I'd like to recognize Dan, AI5OL. Good evening, Dan. Do we have any other short-time check-ins?
Whiskey 5, Alpha Golf Golf, White Rock Lake.
W5AGG. Your name did not come through. Please try again.
Name is Ray, Romeo Alpha Yankee.
Thank you, Ray. I recognize W5AGG. Thank you for joining our net. One more try. Do we have any other short-time check-ins? If you'd like to check in via short time to Skynet, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location. Okay, Tony, NT5TM. If you don't mind, would you read out the stations that have checked in online?
Sure, Bill. I see KE5ICX Tom, KF5JHA Chaz with Bob the Cat at the Perfect Palace. N5BB, Bill in Irving, no surprise there. NT5TM and Tony in East Dallas, not a surprise there either. Kilo Juliet 5 Papa, Lima Mike, Torrance in Plato, thank you. N5MTV, Chad in Garland. N5LIG, Dale in Dallas. Alpha Bravo 5, Delta Mike, Dustin in Dallas. November 5, Foxtrot Charlie, Clay in Mesquite. Alpha Golf.
Okay, Tony, thank you. On my end, the last station I copied was November 5 Foxtrot Charlie. Were there more after them?
In the spreadsheet, yes. Alpha Golf 9 Sierra Golf and Kilo Juliet 5 Echo Alpha Golf.
Guys, I think that's the wrong sheet. I've got the correct information here, KE5ICX.
Okay, I was wondering about that since I had not checked into that form. So please ignore what we just read out. Tom, could you read out the list, please, from tonight's online check-ins? KE5ICX, this is N5BB.
Yeah, I'll be happy to, Bill. This has happened to me, so I recognized it immediately. So here is tonight's. It's got the date for tonight of 6/6. So KE5ICX Tom, that's me. KF5JHA Chaz, Mesquite. NT5TM Tony, East Dallas. N5OF Clay, Mesquite. KF5 PDS, Billy in Sherman. KI5 PGM, Travis in Nikiti and beyond. And Alpha Bravo 5 Delta Mike in Dustin. That's Dustin in Dallas. There we go. That's it. KE5ICX.
Very good. I copy that list. So I want to thank everybody that's checked in so far. If you've not haven't checked in so far, and you'd like to check in to Skynet, please come now on RF. We'll do Echolink in just a minute. So please come now if you're on RF. Give us your call sign, your name, and your city.
This is Kilo Juliet 5 Quebec Echo India. Patrick in Carrollton at Hebron and Josie.
This is
WB4MFI. Ted, Dallas, low power.
W5FC.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo Lima, Bill, public transfer.
This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, far northeast Dallas. This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in North Carrollton.
Okay, very good. This is N5BB. By the way, I'm on Echolink tonight. I'm in Virginia. Sorry about that. Have to do it remotely. I'd like to recognize KJ5QEI. Hello, Patrick. Welcome to our little net. WB4MFI, the Smooth Tones of Ted. Hello, Ted. And Bill, KF5ZBL. Gus, W5GUS. Got some pictures I'm going to be sending you, Gus, of an SR-71 Blackbird. And James, KG5WVL. Do we have any other stations that would like to check in on RF to Skynet? If so, please come now with your name, your call sign, your name, and your city.
This is Alpha Charlie 5, Victor Charlie, Cecil in Mesquite.
And we picked up one more. Cecil, do I have it right? Was it Alpha Golf 5, Victor Charlie?
That's Alpha Charlie 5, Victor Charlie.
I stand corrected. Alpha Charlie 5, Victor Charlie. Welcome, Cecil. Glad you could make our net here this evening. We'll talk about things having to do with astronomy and space, etc. Okay, let's see, Tom, K5ICX. Do we have any other web check-ins?
I do, Bill. I've got Alpha India 5 Sierra Romeo. That's Wayne in Carrollton. That's it. KE5ICX.
Very good. And I recognize Wayne there. And then let me look and see. So I don't see anybody else on Echolink. Did we get Billy? Yes, we did. I don't see anybody else on Echolink needing to check in. Do we have anybody via any mode that would like to check into Skynet? If so, please come down with your call sign, your name, and your location. Very good. Nothing heard. Now let's move forward. By the way, this net has a number of different sections, and so we're going to have some general announcements. We're going to have Texas Astronomical Society of Texas events, National Space Society news, a discussion topic of the evening by the Net Control Station, What's Up? We talk about What's Up in the Sky by Chaz, Space Exploration, Space History, read by Gus, W5GUS. We'll have the Constellation of the Week and the Jokes of the Week, Space Launches of the Week, and if we have any time, the visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. You do not need to be a member of any club. The Dallas Amateur Radio Club sponsors this net, but anybody can check in that's licensed. Okay, now that we've finished with our check-ins, let's look for general announcements. Does somebody have a general announcement which is of interest to amateur radio operators? This can be amateur radio related, astronomy, space, something that hams would be interested in on this net. If you'd like to do that, please come now with your call sign only.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
I recognize NT5TM. Go ahead, Tony.
Good evening, Bill. Of course, I don't have to announce Skynet. If you're here, you already know about it, but you may not know that we have a really good Afterglow movie topic tonight. At about 5 minutes after this net ends, 10:30 or 10:35 or so, we'll be discussing The Truman Show, the movie that taught me that Jim Carrey could actually act. It's a really good one, big budget, big success, good reviews. Not the sort of awkward clunkers we usually talk about. So please join us. Even if you've never seen the movie, or even if you saw it years ago, you probably have something interesting to say, and we'd love to hear that. Please check into the Afterglow Movie Discussion Net about 5 minutes after this net. Please don't forget that there are a lot of other fun activities going on or coming up. Museum Ship Weekend is going on right now. The White Rock Lake Amateur Radio Club Fox Hunt will be taking place tomorrow, along with a brunch at 11 a.m. More details about those events at wa5wrl.org. And also a lot of things about the FIFA World Cup soccer events here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, unsurprisingly, coming together at the last minute. I will be getting an update up to w5fc.org within the next 24 hours with more information about how to volunteer for some local events where radio skills are, in fact, actually needed. Ooh, and don't forget, this Monday, 7 p.m., MCOM 101. If you'd like to volunteer for those FIFA events or any other volunteer event, you might want to ask questions and trade tips and tricks on the MCOM 101 net. This does not require that you be a member of RACES or ARES or Medical Reserve Corps or any group. It's just something we do on the second Monday of the month where we trade public service tips and tricks. I hope you can join us for that if you have any interest in volunteering. So I hope that whets your appetite for more radio, NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m., there is an Echolink AMSAT net. Go and look at Echolink under groups and asterisk, AMSAT asterisk. You can also go to www.amsatnet.com to learn more. Here locally, we have two different AMSAT satellite-related nets. One of them is on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. on this repeater. There's another net on Wednesday evenings at 9 p.m. on the Arlington 147.14 megahertz repeater with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset. As Tony described, we have an emergency communication net at 7 p.m. On Monday of this upcoming week, because it's the second Monday. And then we have other things going on other nights of the week, such as Saturday night, 7 p.m. we have TechNet. Starting at 7 p.m., usually over about 8 p.m. We talk about all things technical related, questions you might have as a beginner or other questions, technical suggestions, or just general announcements. We do a lot of things on TechNet. Then we have this net, Skynet, from 9 p.m. till 10:30 p.m. Okay? This is Saturday evenings I'm talking about now. As Tony mentioned, we have the Afterglow movie net starting at 10:30 p.m. And on the first and third Sundays of the month, on this repeater, we have the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air, and there's also a Race East training net. The Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air starts at 7 p.m., and the Race East training net starts at 8 p.m. That's on the first and third Sundays of the month on this repeater. Every evening, there's a National Traffic System net at 6:30 p.m. on this repeater. Please listen before transmitting so you're checking at the right time. This is for stations that want to learn how to move message traffic or that want to help with moving message traffic. These are like radiograms. So that's at 6:30 p.m. on this repeater every night. And then every night at 9:30 p.m. local time on the Irving 146.72 WA5CKF repeater, there's the late session of this traffic net. Anyone's welcome to check into any of these nets. Just please listen so you know that you're checking in at the right time. Tom, Tom, KE5ICX. Do you want to read a very, very accurate description of the Afterglow movie tonight? KE5ICX inside BB.
Yes, I do, Bill. Just remind everybody who's presenting this evening, the repeater is in normal mode. It's not in the net mode, so you may have to drop carrier every once in a while. I think there's a 3-minute timeout. So here we go, tonight's Afterglow info. Truman Burbank thought the world revolved around him. It did, of course. But he knew that couldn't really be true, except for the folding chair with his name on it sitting innocently on the crosswalk. Its existence suggested he really was the center of this universe. There was also someone in the sky yelling, rolling, speed, and the word action all at the same time. It was as if he lived in a Robert Altman film, one that's too long with too much improvisational dialogue and a gaggle of stage people smoking while staring at their watches, obviously anxious to get home, far away from some crazy perfectionist artiste. Cut and print came from the blue skies, and the Burbank knew it was time for him to go home. It was such a confusing world where art imitated life, imitated art, but then imitated art and life again. It was like that forever repeating picture, an artist from Escape from the Planet of the Apes, where the reporter Bill Bonds was confused by the repeating loop. This was the repeating loop too, only without Bill Bonds. So join us for a Library of Congress approved movie, The Truman Show, from 1998 tonight at 10:30 p.m. There's a live link, Truman Show, at the Skynet announcement on the W5FC.org website. Back to you, Bill, KE5. I see. Oh, one other thing. Hold on. Field day. CRC will be having their field day, and we will be having a movie at 10:30 p.m. in lieu of the Afterglow movie net. It will be Back to the Future from 1985. Come by and enjoy this classic sci-fi comedy with other hams. So that'll be it. June 27th, it'll be at the YMC Johnson Outpost at 3325 Valley View Lane in Farmers Branch. That's from 10:30 until midnight. And all are welcome. Come on by and say hi. That's it, Bill. KE5, ICX.
NT5TM.
NT5TM, this is N5BB. Go ahead, Tony.
I didn't realize we weren't in net mode because of exiting from that Racy's net. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can fix that. Apparently not. Maybe Bill will have to try later. NT5TM, back to net.
Okay, thank you, Tony. This is N5BB, net control for Skynet. I see one additional check-in possibly on Echolink. KI5NUK. Ralph, would you like to check in on voice? And if so, I'm not sure if that worked. Ralph, KI5NUK, this is N5BB and Skynet. Would you like to check into the net?
Good evening, everyone. This is KI5NUK Ralph from up in Sherman, a new member of the club. Thank you for checking me into the net.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Welcome to the net. We appreciate having you here. We hope you have fun and learn something this evening. Does anyone have any, before I move forward, are there any other check-ins, questions, or comments about anything we've talked about so far? If you'd like a check-in or you have any questions or comments, please come down with your call sign, your name, and your location. Sound like a double, but I heard KE5ICX. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I have two more check-ins for you. I have AA5AH, Robert Richardson, and KJ5 Echo Alpha Golf. That's Brandon in far northeast Dallas, KE5ICX.
Very good. Welcome to Robert, AA5AH, and Brandon, KJ5EAG. Glad you could make it. Okay, now it's time to move ahead with the next business of the net. It's time for Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events. Chaz, can you tell us more about the task?
W5FC.
Thank you, Bill. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Skynet on a rainy, thunderstormy evening. On June the 26th, is the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting. The meeting is going to be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas. And there's also a Zoom component for members. The featured speaker is going to be Senthil Nagapan. His topic is going to be about sharing astronomy through public observing sessions and educational programs. Now, the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas hosts Saturday night public observing sessions in this area. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night, so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions. On the first Saturday of the month, that would be tonight, stargazing is held at Fairview. Well, tonight's stargazing was canceled due to the clouds and thunderstorms and rain, and So anyway, check the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas website at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing stations. This is KF5, JHA, back during night control in 5BB.
Thank you, Chaz. Again, this is N5BB, net control for the Dallas Amateur Radio Club, Skynet. Next, we have National Space Society events, and I happen to be the National Space Society North Texas chapter vice president and membership director. You can reach me at space@byrom.net. That's SPACE @BYROM.net. The National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. Our local National Space Society chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Just type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box and request access. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society has a monthly meeting at 3:30 p.m. on the second Saturday afternoon of each month. The location is Spring Creek Barbecue in Irving on Highway 183, across the highway from Irving Mall. Visitors are welcome. Our next chapter meeting will be on Sunday, June the 14th, but I will not be there. I will be in Buffalo, New York. Anyway, the topic will be the Orion capsule and the launch abort system by Ernest Levert, who's a retired Lockheed fellow. On the last Friday evening of each month from 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous at Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. You do not need to be a member of any organization to attend. 7 people attended the May event. The next Space Rendezvous will be held on Friday, June the 26th. The big National Space Society event each year is the International Space Development Conference, ISDC 2026, has been underway the past few days. And Bill Byram, myself, is currently at this event, which ends tomorrow evening. The theme for this year's ISDC is Space for Us All. 5 astronauts are attending. Earlier today, I heard astronauts. These are retired astronauts: Hoot Gibson, Susan Kilrain, and Dr. Stephen Hawley in a panel answered various questions about being an astronaut. It so happens that all 3 of those have books coming out. One is available, and the other 2 are getting ready to come out shortly, but advanced copies were available here. So I've got 3 books I just bought, one from each of those astronauts, signed by them. Isn't that a cool thing you can do at an International Space Development Conference? Get 3 books. This is Eyes to the Stars, a memoir of the space shuttle generation, Space Ace, and Flying Snakes in the Cockpit by Susan Colerain. Anyway, If you have any questions about the National Space, oh, by the way, another astronaut is here. Earlier today, there was a talk by Michael Lopez Alegria, or maybe this was yesterday. I forget which day it was. He is the head astronaut for Axiom. It's putting up a space station. So he talked in detail about the Axiom space station they are working on right now, the private space station. Details about that. It was very interesting. Anyway, he also is a previous NASA astronaut. And then today we had Harrison Schmitt. Harrison Schmitt is 90 years old. He was one of the two astronauts that walked on the moon during the last Apollo mission, Apollo 17, in late 1972. He is 90 years old, and he is sharp as a whip, and he's spry, and I certainly hope we're all that awake and with the world as Harrison Schmitt is at age 90. Anyway, he gave a very good talk today in the Mars track about his ideas about going to Mars. And this is N5BB. This is Skynet. I'm breaking quite often so this repeater doesn't time out. And he then this evening at dinner, he gave a talk. And believe it or not, the thing he talked the most about was he went back and used some old Apollo data from some cores. Harrison Schmitt is a geologist. His nickname is Jack. And he went back and got this data, and he was showing some new results he has created from this data from these Apollo cores about the age of the regolith in different areas. So, again, lots of interesting things, books, book signings, you name it. International Space Development Conferences are really cool. Anyway, if you have any questions about the National Space Society, please contact me, Bill, N5BB, that's November 5 Bravo Bravo, at my QRZ listed email address, or at space@byram.net. Okay. Do we have any other stations that would like to check in to the net, or any questions or comments? This is N5BB, and this is Skynet.
W5FC.
Okay, I don't see any other check-ins on Echolink. Well, unfortunately, you've got to listen to me a bit longer. This is the discussion topic of the evening. The topic tonight is safety officials finally have a good idea of what a big rocket explosion can do. Overpressure from the Blue Origin blast shattered windows at a hangar about a mile away from the pad. Yes, this is at Cape Kennedy, or Cape Canaveral, and this is a little over a week ago. It's a New Glenn rocket. So this is from ARS Technica. It's an article written June the 5th by Stephen Clark. Last week's explosion of a New Glenn rocket at Cape Canaveral, Florida, was clearly a setback for Blue Origin and NASA, but it was a learning experience for safety officials looking to open up the spaceport to hundreds more launches per year. The launch base on Florida's Space Coast is gearing up for a flurry of new arrivals. SpaceX is building multiple launch pads for its Super Heavy Starship rocket, which will operate within a few miles of launch pads operated by SpaceX rivals Blue Origin and United Launch Alliance. Two other companies, Stoke Space and Relativity Space, are also developing launch sites along a narrow stretch of coastline at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, which is nearby. All of them have, or will soon have, rockets burning methane or liquefied natural gas, replacing legacy launch vehicles fueled by kerosene, liquid hydrogen, or solid propellants. There are good technical reasons for making the switch, but until last week, engineers had scant real-world data on the damage that millions of pounds of methane and liquid oxygen would cause if a fully loaded rocket exploded on the launch pad or soon after liftoff. By 2036, the Space Force projects that the spaceport could support up to 500 launches per year, 5 times last year's total. The combination of these lofty launch forecasts and the Space Force's conservative safety protocols have caused some tension at the Cape Canaveral spaceport. Competitors of SpaceX have worried that daily launches and landings on the company's reusable Super Heavy Starship rocket might force evacuations of their own facilities for safety reasons. The U.S. Space Force, which runs the spaceport, maintains strict rules for methane liquid oxygen or methalox rockets. Comparatively, kerosene and hydrogen are known quantities. This is N5BB, net control for Skynet. For now, military officials are treating any methalox rocket with 100% TNT blast equivalency and maintaining wide keep-out zones around their launch pads when the rockets are loaded with propellant. Their intention is to ensure the safety of the public and workers in the spaceport. With more data on how methane-fueled rockets explode, officials expect the keep-out zones to get smaller over time. To this end, NASA, the Space Force, FAA, and SpaceX have conducted subscale ground tests to gather measurements on methane's explosive yield. The 100% blast equivalency policy was in effect at Cape Canaveral last Thursday. This is Thursday a week ago, a little over a week before now, when Blue Origin loaded its New Glenn booster full of methane and liquid oxygen at Launch Complex 36. The smaller second stage was filled with liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen, as Blue Origin's launch team counted down to a brief test firing of the Rocket 7 BE-4 engine. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. So again, they were not going to launch the rocket. The rocket was held down via, clamps to the pad. All they were going to do was fire the engines and see if the engines are all working okay. However, a fireball enveloped the rocket as the engines lit, destroying the launch vehicle and much of the launch pad. The explosion knocked Blue Origin's only launch facility out of commission. The company says it aims to repair the site and resume launching by the end of the year, but past launch pad rebuilds have taken at least twice that long. It took SpaceX about 15 months to return one of its launch pads to service after a Falcon 9 rocket exploded during a similar test in 2016. That event was not as powerful as the Blue Origin incident last week. New Glenn is the biggest rocket we've launched here off the eastern range, and with that, it had the most fuel, said Colonel Brian Chapman, commander of the Space Force unit that operates the Cape Canaveral spaceport. That makes it the largest explosion that we've had out here. There were no injuries to any personnel. The explosion destroyed Blue Origin's transporter erector that supports the rocket during horizontal rollout and raises it vertically on the pad. Blue Origin says it won't replace the transporter erector, will instead employ an alternative vertical CONOP, a concept of operations, when it resumes New Glenn operations at Launch Complex 36, which the company leases from Space Force. Exploding rockets are nothing new in the launch business. Launch vehicles routinely blew up on the launch pad in the early years of the space age. The only rocket bigger than New Glenn to fail with a full load of fuel on or near its launch pad was the Soviet Union's N-1 rocket more than 50 years ago. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. The blast danger area, there's a three-letter acronym for that, BDA, blast danger area, for last year's ill-fated New Glenn test, based on the assumption of 100% blast equivalency, spanned a diameter of 74 feet, or an average distance, a radius, of 3,587 feet from the pad, according to the Space Force. That's approximately 2/3 of a mile. All personnel were evacuated from this area before Blue Origin started fueling the rocket. The farthest debris found so far was thrown a half-mile from the launch pad, Chapman said. He said engineers collected phenomenal data from the explosion, and officials will use the measurements to improve models on Methalox rocket explosions. As the teams are now going out and looking at the surrounding area, we'll have a good feel for what overpressure impacts look like across the range and what the explosion looked like in and around the area, Chapman said. Blue Origin also had some sensors and collected some data inside their integration facility and is working in lockstep with the government, both on the Space Force side and the NASA side, to help us evaluate and work that data into our models. SpaceX's combined Starship and Super Heavy booster is the only methane-fueled rocket larger than New Glenn, with plans to launch from Cape Canaveral. Starship already flies from SpaceX's private base in South Texas, which operates under guidelines set by the FAA. The only launch facilities that are owned by SpaceX, the only launch facilities there in South Texas are owned by SpaceX, limiting any concern about interference with competitors. This is Skynet, and this is N5BB net control. When Starship comes to Florida, Chapman said the initial BDA in place when the rocket is fueled will extend an average distance of about 6,000 feet from the pad for a total diameter of roughly 12,000 feet. The exact size can change based on environmental conditions each day. Roads, waterways, and facilities within that footprint will be inaccessible during Starship tests, launches, and returns. The Commercial Space Foundation, a lobbying group whose members include SpaceX, Blue Origin, and other companies with methane-fueled rockets, has argued the government should set its TNT blast equivalency to no greater than 25%, a change that would greatly reduce the size of keep-out zones around launch pads. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. We know we have a conservative approach, Chapman said. We know that we will be able to bring in that BDA. We don't know how far we'll be able to bring that in. We are going to make a data-driven decision how much we can reduce the BDA, but until we have all the data fed into the models and that true analysis done, we're going to continue with the conservative approach that we have with that 100% blast TNT equivalency, because we just validated that with the Blue Origin explosion. We had 0 casualties, 0 injuries across the board. Outside of the launch pad itself, Chapman said the overpressure from the Newfoundland blast shattered windows at a Space Force hangar now used as a museum, about a mile away from the pad. There was also damage to a weather balloon facility at the base. Blue Origin is on the hook to pay for any repairs to property outside of the pad, as it is for the rebuild of the pad itself, Chapman said. The Launch Complex 36 rebuild, that's on Blue Origin, and we'll look to Blue Origin to be able to support them and to continue the work as they rebuild that pad. Okay, that's all I've got. There are some pictures and other things, some links that Tom has inserted into the script if you're online. Okay, that's all we've got there. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. Do we have any additional check-ins? Okay, next is time for What's Up. Chaz, what's up when we walk outside and look ahead above us? What's going on in the universe? KF5GHA, N5BB, go ahead.
Thanks, Bill. Good evening, everyone. What's up tonight? I heard a lot of interference. Maybe I'm better now. Okay, there we go. Yes, this is Chaz, KF5JHA. What's up? Well, there's thunderstorms and rain in our area here in Mesquite. We call this segment of Skynet What's Up because it's all about what has gone on astronomically over the last weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and beyond. That was slide number 2. Slide number 3. By the way, I'm talking about slides. There's a video version of Skynet. You can go to W5FC.org, click on the link for the YouTube version of Skynet and watch all the pretty pictures we're talking about. Now, slide 3, I have talked about the predicted nova of the star T Coronaborealis, which may erupt at any time. It is currently at a brightness of around 10th magnitude, which is much too faint to be able to see with just your 2 eyes. T Coronaborealis was supposed to go nova about 2 years ago. One recent prediction was for T Coronaborealis to go nova on November the 10th, 2025. Well, that didn't happen. So another prediction is around June 25th, which is vastly approaching us, give or take a day or 2. Now, when it does go nova, T Coronaborealis could become as bright as the North Star, which is 2nd magnitude. And I can see the North Star with my eyes, that's it, from my very light-polluted location here in Mesquite. Slide Master, slide number 4. This image of the sun was taken on June the 3rd. I borrowed this from the website spaceweather.com. The large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large at times that you can just use your solar eclipse glasses to see them. Now, the sun has just passed its 11-year solar maximum. That was in October of 2024. I presented information about the solar cycle about 4 or 5 months ago on Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 5, please. Full moon was on May the 31st, and since it was the second full moon in May, it was a blue moon. We talked about that last week on Skynet. So the current phase of the moon is a waning gibbous. On the June the 8th, it is the 3rd quarter moon. On June the 14th, is the new moon. It's also on June the 14th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 357,197 kilometers. On June the 21st, the moon is at its first quarter phase. On June the 28th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 406,265 kilometers. On June the 29th, the moon is full. Slide master, slide number 6, please. Okay, so on June the 7th, oh wait, that's tomorrow. There's a conjunction of Venus, Jupiter, and Pollux in the west-northwestern evening sky. Slide master, slide number 7. On the night of June the 7th and 8th is the peak of the daytime Eridanus meteor shower, which could produce up to 30 meteors in an hour. Now, how do you observe daytime meteors? Believe it or not, you use radio. Oh, if you want to get more information about meteors and meteor showers, now you can observe them with a radio. You can visit the International Meteor Organization at IMO.net or the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org. Slide master, slide number 8, please. On June the 9th, there's a conjunction of the moon and the planet Neptune in the eastern morning sky. Now, Neptune is too faint to be seen with your two eyes. In fact, it's too faint to be seen with binoculars for the most part. You'll need to use a telescope to find the planet Neptune. And probably a good star map so you can find out which dot is the planet Neptune. Slide master, slide number 9. On June the 10th, there's a conjunction of the moon, Saturn, Neptune's close by, Pallas, which is an asteroid, and Vesta is also an asteroid in the eastern morning sky. Pretty crowded morning skies right now. Slide master, slide number 10. On June the 12th, there's a conjunction of the moon and Mars in the east-northeastern morning sky. Slide master, slide number 11. On June the 13th, there's a conjunction of the moon, Mars, Uranus, M45, that's the Pleiades, and Ceres in the east-northeastern morning sky. Wow, once again, it's a crowded morning sky, isn't it? On slide master, slide number 12, on June the 16th, there's a conjunction of the moon, Jupiter, and Pollux, and Venus close to each other in the west-northwestern evening sky. And slide master, slide number 13, on the night of June the 11th and 12th, there's the peak of the June Lyrid meteor shower, which could produce either from nothing up to about 30 meteors in an hour. Usually the best time to observe meteors is the hour before dawn, because that's the side of the Earth that's running into the debris left behind by a comet or an asteroid. Once again, if you want to get more information about meteors and meteor showers, you can visit the International Meteor Organization at IMO.net or the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org. This is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 14. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have a question? Or maybe you need a fill on any information I've just given you. Or maybe you just have a general astronomy question. My degree's in astrophysics. I might be able to answer the question, or someone else here on the net might be able to. Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill.
KJ5QE. Has there been any more information about the air leak on the space station?
That's a great question. I don't know about that. I know that they were going through repairs. Does somebody else here on the net have the information about the air leak on the ISS? Please come now with your call sign.
NT5TM.
Tony, go ahead and take it away.
Well, I wish I had more. NASA seems to be being very careful to avoid hurting their partners. Executives' feelings, I think, is the main concern. I only have the information I presented on TechNet that on Friday, Roscosmos was planning to attempt some leak detection and repairs, and NASA got concerned about whatever that was. They don't want to tell us what the details were. They asked the U.S. astronauts to move into the Crew Dragon and close the hatch. Roscosmos attempted a repair of one leak. They believe there were two, and they announced they were not going to attempt repair of the second leak. They closed the hatch back to the affected docking adapter, and the U.S. astronauts were allowed to leave the Crew Dragon. There just doesn't seem to be a lot of detail available online. There's an intentional effort to not embarrass anybody and not cause any panic, which leaves all of us space nerds frustrated. NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. QEI, did that answer your question?
Affirmative. That answers my question. Thank you.
So much. All right. Slide Master, slide number 15. So as the moon wanes in a couple of weeks, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. That's the only one where humans live. And until next time, actually I'll be doing another segment on Skynet in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what is up. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet, which is transmitting on the W5FC repeater in Dallas, Texas, on 146.88 megahertz. Skynet is also available on Echolink and YouTube. I've talked about that in the last few minutes. Back to our net control, N5BB.
Thank you, Chaz. This is N5BB net control for Skynet. I got a report that there's going to be later in the net maybe some information about this. By the way, the information I saw, I believe it was an ARS Technica, was that the Russians were thinking about cutting a bracket so they could get access to the area where one of the holes was. And NASA got very concerned by that and wanted their astronauts to get into the SpaceX capsule, the Dragon capsule, just in case. Okay, next, do we have any other stations that would like to check in to Skynet? If so, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your locations. This is N5BB. Nothing heard. Okay, next, it's time for Gus, W5GUS. Gus, tell us about space exploration and space history. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. And don't forget to give a break at least once every 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Bill. W5GUS here with space exploration, space history, and space exploration news. We'll start with May 29th. United Launch Alliance successfully launched an Atlas V rocket in its most powerful 551 configuration from Space Launch Complex 41 at Cape Canaveral. The mission, designated Amazon Leo 7, carried 29 broadband satellites into orbit for Amazon satellite Constellation. The launch set a record-tying weight for the heaviest payload ever carried by an Atlas V rocket. Despite the catastrophic New Glenn explosion, at a nearby pad the previous night. The eastern range was cleared as fully mission capable, allowing the ULA to execute the flight, its launch on schedule. Okay, June the 5th, NASA directed 5 astronauts aboard you've heard about this, directed 5 astronauts aboard the International Space Station, including the 4 SpaceX Crew 12 members and NASA astronaut Chris Williams, to get the heck inside their docked Crew Dragon spacecraft as an elevated safety posture. The emergency protocol was initiated after a persistent air leak in the transfer tunnel of the Russian service module worsened. With the leak rate doubling to 2 pounds of air per day, tensions rose when Roscosmos engineers proposed using a saw to cut a structural bracket to access the leak, raising concerns from NASA engineers about the module's structural integrity. The repair work was subsequently paused to allow for further data assessment, and the crew returned to normal operations. I guess that means they opened the hatch and got back into the ISS. Okay, last Thursday, June the 4th, the China National Space Administration successfully launched a polar orbiting satellite using a Long March 6A carrier rocket. They launched it from their launch center in North China's in the northern China province. The satellite successfully entered its designated polar orbit, marking another step in China's deployment of its domestic mega constellation. The launch was the 11th flight of the Long March 6A launcher, which features a liquid-fueled core stage paired with 4 solid rocket boosters. Sounds familiar. Seems like that's the popular configuration these days. Works well. Okay, June 6th today, NASA announced the successful completion of the primary phase of its Polylingual Experimental Terminal, or PEXT mission, proving that spacecraft can seamlessly transition between different government and commercial satellite communications networks. The PEXT terminal, hosted on a Pathfinder technology demonstrator satellite, successfully established links with multiple provider networks in orbit. This capability marks a significant milestone in satellite communication interoperability, offering future space exploration missions greater operational flexibility. All right, that brings us up to today, so we will go to space-related birthdays. June 1st, 1928, Gregory Dobrovolsky was born, June 1st, 1928. He commanded the Soyuz 11 mission and served as crew on Soyuz 1, which was the world's first space station. He spent 22 days in orbit. He and his fellow crew members died during re-entry due to a cabin depressurization valve failure. Okay, June the 2nd, 1930, Pete Conrad was born. He was quite a busy astronaut here. He was on Gemini 5, Gemini 11, Apollo 12, and Skylab 2. He commanded Apollo 12 and was the 3rd person to walk on the moon. He commanded Skylab 2, which repaired the damaged Skylab in orbit. Okay, June the 5th, 1956. Richard Searfoss was born. He was a ham, KC5CKM. He piloted the STS-58 and STS-76. They later docked with the Russian Mir space station to deliver astronaut Shannon Lucid. He later commanded STS-90, Neural Lab, a mission dedicated to studying the effects of microgravity on the human nervous system. Okay, June the 5th, 1934, Curtis Michael was born. He was selected as one of the 6 scientist astronauts in NASA Astronaut Group 4 in 1965. He completed pilot training but resigned from NASA in 4 years later in 1969 to return to full-time scientific research at Rice University without having flown in space at all. Okay, June 6, 1932, David Scott was born. He was on Gemini 8, Apollo 9, and Apollo 15. He flew with Neil Armstrong on Gemini 8, performing the first successful docking of 2 spacecraft in orbit. He later commanded Apollo 15. He commanded Apollo 15, the first extended J mission to the moon, which saw the first use of the lunar roving vehicle. Okay, June 6th, today's date, but in 1956, Jay Bucky was born. He was on STS-90, served as a payload specialist aboard Shuttle Columbia. It's a Neuro Lab mission. During this flight, he conducted numerous experiments focusing on how weightlessness affects brain and nervous system functions. Okay, that's the last birthday from so far of the week. So we will move to This Week in Space History, May 31st, 2020. Following their historic launch, the SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft Endeavour successfully docked with the International Space Station. The automated docking procedure occurred at the station's Harmony module, demonstrating the vehicle's autonomous navigation and docking capabilities. Upon entering the station, the 2 astronauts joined the Expedition 63 crew to participate in scientific experiments and station maintenance and all kind of hilarity. This docking marked the first time that a privately built and operated crew spacecraft had successfully linked with the ISS. The spacecraft remained docked to the station for 2 months before safely returning to the astronauts to Earth via a splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, June the 1st, 1970, the Soviet Union launched the Soyuz 9 mission, carrying 2 cosmonauts. The flight was notable as the first crewed space launch to be conducted at night. The primary objective of the mission was to investigate the physiological effects of long-duration weightlessness on the human body. And during their flight, the crew conducted numerous medical and scientific experiments to pave the way for future long-duration station missions. Ultimately, the mission lasted over 17 days and set a new space endurance record, which still remains the longest crewed flight of a solo, non-docked spacecraft. was June the 1st, 1970. Okay, June the 2nd, 1966, on the NASA Surveyor 1 spacecraft successfully performed a soft landing on the surface of the moon. This historic achievement marked the first time a U.S. spacecraft had successfully landed on another celestial body. This was June 2nd, 1966. The probe landed on the ocean of storms and immediately began transmitting television images and data back to Earth. Over the course of its mission, Surveyor 1 returned more than 11,000 detailed photographs of the lunar surface. The engineering data gathered by this mission was critical in demonstrating that the lunar dust would or could support the weight of the Apollo lunar module. They didn't know that before. Okay, June 3rd, 1965, Gemini 4 mission launched from Cape Canaveral, carrying astronaut James McDivitt and Ed White. During the mission's third orbit, Ed White opened the hatch and performed the first American spacewalk in history. Tethered to the spacecraft and using a handheld maneuvering unit, he floated in the vacuum of space for approximately 21 minutes. That must have been kind of fun. In addition to the historic spacewalk, the crew attempted the first orbital rendezvous maneuvers and conducted 11 scientific experiments. The successful 4-day flight demonstrated that humans could work outside a spacecraft, proving to be a major milestone in the race to the moon. Okay, and on June the 4th, 2010, SpaceX conducted its historic maiden flight of its Falcon 9 rocket from Cape Canaveral. The two-stage launch vehicle successfully lifted off and placed a mock-up of the Dragon spacecraft into low Earth orbit. The flight was a critical milestone for SpaceX, proving the capability of its Merlin engines and Merlin-powered core stages. It also validated the design of the rocket structure and flight control systems under real launch conditions. The successful debut paved the way for SpaceX future commercial resupply missions, crewed flights, and booster reuse programs that revolutionized space flight. All right, June 5th, 2024, Boeing Starliner spacecraft launched on its first crewed mission. The Boeing Crew Flight Test CFT. An Atlas V rocket launched from Cape Canaveral carrying NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. The mission aimed to test the spacecraft's end-to-end capabilities, including launch, docking with the ISS, and undocking and landing. Although the spacecraft encountered helium leaks and thruster issues during its rendezvous, it successfully docked with the ISS. This test flight served as a crucial demonstration for certifying Starliner as a second commercial spacecraft for ISS crew rotation. All right, and our last item of the space history, June 6, 1971, the Soviet Union launched the Soyuz 11 spacecraft, carrying three cosmonauts. The crew's objective was to dock with Soyuz 1, which was the world's very first experimental space station. The mission successfully achieved docking the following day, and the crew spent over 3 weeks conducting scientific research aboard the station. During their stay, they established new records for endurance and conducted pioneering work on astronomy and biology. While the launch and docking were highly successful, the mission ultimately ended in tragedy when the crew died during a re-entry due to valve failure. That was June 6th, 1971. And with that, we will pass the net back to Net Control, Bill, and look forward to Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week and some nice jokes. Back to you, Bill, W5GUS.
Thank you, Gus. This is N5BB, and this is Skynet. Next, Chaz, KF5JHA. Tell us Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. And we've got you can take about 10 minutes. I think you can make it through it probably, as long as you don't delay too much. N5BB.
Thank you, Bill. We're running a little bit late on Skynet, and it'll take maybe 10 minutes. That'll put us way past our time when we're supposed to end Skynet. So let's postpone Libra the Scales Constellation of the Week until next week. It'll still be prominent in the skies next week, so we'll talk about that then. Although I do want to do one of the jokes that I had saved just for you, Bill. N5DB, why do you keep trying to balance mints on your foot? It turns out you're playing tic-tac-toe. See, it's scales, the Libra, the scales to balance. That's the constellation of the week, and that was supposed to be the joke I was going to tell. Anyway, this is Chaz, KF5JJ, back to our Net Control, N5BB.
Well, Chaz, I'm going to tow that joke off to the graveyard, to the naval graveyard. Okay, let me find the end here. Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Tonight we had roughly 20 people attending. I want to thank everybody who checked in this evening. We hope you join us next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this net and all other Dallas Amateur Radio Club nets. If you want to try your hand at a net control position, send an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can solve all these kind of topics by going to w5fc.org right now and look at all the links. Until next Saturday night, this is N5BB, and I am closing a net at 10:27 p.m., returning your repeater to normal amateur radio use, although we have the Afterglow movie coming up in a few minutes. Good evening, N5BB clear.
And this is KE5ICX. We'll be back with the Afterglow Movie Net here in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Got enough time to make some microwave popcorn. Come back and we'll be discussing The Truman Show from 1998. So come on back. Even if you haven't seen the film, check in anyway. We'll ask you questions, and you can provide answers. Back in 5. KE5ICX.
W5FC, normal state. When is Skynet?
I don't know.
Does Charlie know?
Always 9 p.m. Saturday on 146.88. Duh.
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow movie net.
NT5TM testing concluded. Okay, trying again, NT5TM. This time I know it works. Yep, perfect. NT5TM clear.
Okay, 5 minutes are up. It is time for the Afterglow Movie Net here on the Night of Nets. I am KE5ICX, of your net control from Corpus Christi, Texas. I have a beautiful view out the window. The museum ship event, I think, is tomorrow. I think it is. And I can see one right out my window here. Retirement's wonderful. Okay, with that, tonight's movie is called The Truman Show from 1998. It's called an American comedy drama film directed by Peter Weir, written and produced by Andrew Nicole, starring Jim Carrey as Truman Burbank, a man who is unaware that he's living his entire life on a colossal soundstage and is being filmed and broadcast as a reality television show that has a huge international following. All his friends, family, and members of his community are paid actors whose job is to sustain the illusion and keep Truman unaware that the world he inhabits is scripted and fake. The film's supporting cast includes Laura Linney, Ed Harris, Noah Emmerich, Natasha McEnroe, Holland Taylor, and Paul Giamatti. McCoy's original spec script was more of a science fiction thriller with this story set in New York City. Producer Scott Rutan purchased the script and set up production at Paramount Pictures. Brian De Palma was to direct before Ware signed on as a director, making the film for $60 million, $20 million less than the original estimate. Cole rewrote the script while the crew was waiting for Terry to sign. The majority of the filming took place in Seaside, Florida, a master planned community located in the Florida Panhandle. The Truman Show held its world premiere in Los Angeles on June 1st, 1998, and was released in North America on June 5th. How about that? Has an anniversary this week. The film was a financial success, grossing $264 million worldwide, debuting as to national acclaim, critical acclaim, and earned numerous nominations from the 71st Academy Awards, 56 Golden Globes, 52nd British Academy Film Award, and the 25th Saturn Award. Saturn Awards is a science fiction award. The Truman Show has been analyzed as an exploration of simulated reality, existentialism, surveillance, meta-philosophy, privacy, and reality television, and described as a genre-bending work that features elements of dystopian fiction, metafiction, psychological drama, romantic comedy, satire, and social science fiction. Boy, that's loaded. I bet you they studied this in university quite a bit. In 2025, it was selected for preservation by the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Well, there you have it. Very interesting. It's one of our first really good films, or at least critically acclaimed films, we've seen in a long time. We needed a breath of fresh air, and the Truman Show did indeed do that. So with that, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and take check-ins. You come with your call sign name and did you see the film. You are not disqualified if you haven't seen the film. In fact, this was my first viewing was just last night, so I finally saw it for the first time after all these years yesterday. You're welcome to do so, and what do you think about it? Because this is a really juicy one with all of the different topics that come into play involving the script and the realization of the film. So we'll take check-ins. After that, we'll talk about the plot, followed by characterization and acting, and then we will finish with a third round of everything else, which includes special effects, music, staging, lighting, or any topic you made or comments that you missed on the first two rounds. It's about a 90-minute net. So here we go. I will take check-ins. Please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see The Truman Show from 1998?
ARG, November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Someone else needs to start going first. I did see the movie, though. I've seen it several times. I'm just sad I didn't have time to watch it a second time today. NT5TM.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean Fort Worth. Yes, I did see this film.
This is W5BLT. Bill. I saw 42 minutes and 25 seconds of this film, and I think I doubled with Tony. This is Alpha Charlie 5, Delta Lima, Dave, Louisville, Texas. Yes, I did see the film.
All right, we got some of our usual suspects. I've got NT5TM, Tony, yes, he saw the film. KB9SOK, Sean over in Fort Worth, yes, he saw the film. W5BLT, Bill, yes, he saw the film. AC5TL, David in Louisville, yes, he saw the film. Additional check-ins, please come now.
Whiskey 5, Echo Bravo Bravo, David in Springtown.
Okay, we picked up W5EBB David in Springtown over on Echolink, and I see Billy out there. She participated last week. Let me see if she's there. KF5 PDS, Billy, you want to come on in from KE5 to ICX?
Yeah, this is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy and Sherman on Echolink, and yes, I did see the film.
All right, we picked up KF5 PDS, Miss Billy over in Sherman. She did see the film. I'll open it up to anyone, any mode. Anyone who would like to join us who hasn't checked in yet, please come with your call sign name. And did you see tonight's film, The Truman Show? All right, hearing none, we do have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and get started. We'll go down in order. Sorry, Tony. Yes, somebody has to say, I am Spartacus, and that's you. So we're just going to call you Spartacus because, you know, that's how that works. So NT5TM, Tony, you seem to have liked the film from your comments that it was tonight's topic. So what do you think about the plot from KE5 ICX?
No, I think many positive things about the plot. I was just annoyed that I was very busy last night. I had to catch up on some honeydews while I was watching the movie, and then I just did not have time to watch it again today and produce a better set of notes. So I think, yes, and I'm outside now on a waterproof handy-talkie trying to persuade the dog to take care of some things. The thing I most like about this movie, well, its plot, at least I have other things that I like about it in other ways, is the continuous increase of tension. It is just wonderful that much of the movie's humor derives from the fact that the lead character is crazy because he's increasingly realizing that the world around him doesn't make sense. They do try to shield him from outside influences. They do constantly try to discourage him from leaving and give him all sorts of weird, do you have enough insurance to protect yourself from street gangs, reasons to stay in the planned community. But he's just feeling that it doesn't measure up. He sees things, like I Love Lucy, where people travel to places, they have normal relationships, they don't really experience a lot of product placement in their day-to-day life. So when he does do things like announce the discovery of planet Trumania, he is also gradually getting more and more upset. And the plot really derives not around D-Day or some violent conflict, but of this really disturbing tension between what he feels ought to be normal and what his life is like. And so I don't know if he could ever adjust to life in the outside world because honestly, had a pretty strange life so far, but I just love the constant increase of I'm either going to go crazy or escape. Should I go crazy or escape? What's my choice here? Which one am I choosing today? Or will I just choose to play along and, try to sell an insurance policy to somebody? So there's this wonderful continuous building of narrative tension, and we pay a lot of attention and wondering, how will it end, to quote the button that he ends up wearing. So I do like it a lot. I wish I had time to prepare better notes and some more constructive comments, but I do want to express my appreciation and my love for that constant tension between madness and discovery, which, I honestly think some real scientists have experienced. NT5T.
All right, I think you're doing pretty well, Tony. Some good notes, even though they may be extemporaneous. Next up is Sean, KB9S. Okay, Sean, you're near the top of the list. Congratulations. So you get to plow through with probably some interesting ideas here. Go ahead. What did you think about the plot for The Truman Show from KE5 ICX?
Yeah, this is KB9S. Okay. Yeah, I'm almost not sure what to say here. I'm not near this top of the list, so therefore, normally I just pick up on things that maybe weren't mentioned yet. So yeah. Oh, first of all, I really like your shelf behind you there. I like all your blinds. Awesome. So yeah, the movie. Yeah, I agree with what Tony said. I think that was probably one of the best parts, I think, of this plot was that build-up. I found it very interesting in that respect. And I think that does kind of explain one side of the story. This movie did try to be many, many things, and if you had to kind of pick at it, and that was probably I think its biggest weakness for me, was that it tried to do so many things. This tried to point a light at, reality. In '98, we just started reality television. We had things like Survivor, Big Brother. Maybe Big Brother was kind of an inspiration for this. I don't know. I didn't read to find out. But, at that time, we were just dabbing our toes in it. And we had three very distinctive types of reality at that time that was starting to come out. One, we had the Survivor, just game show and reality. It's not really reality TV, just game show. And then we had the shows that were real reality, that really did show people living their lives, doing things. The early days of the internet, we did have people that did try literally filming their lives, from cameras in their house just day to day, going for walks, going to work. They maybe didn't show you quite everything, but they really were trying to show that. So it's like to see where this movie was, the idea came from, because we were just starting to experiment with that. And then we had the third type of reality, which is kind of the reality TV that kind of settled in, unfortunately, I think. Today we got all these ones that are completely, pretty much 90% scripted. Producers are controlling it. The people have very little to say what really happens. And this is kind of what we're seeing. So I have to give the writers of this a lot of credit. They did a mixture of 2 and 3. For there was, one person that really was reality for them, but everybody else was in on the joke, if you want to call it that, was in on the plot and was guiding his life every step of the way, literally. So I thought that side of it was very, very entertaining as well. Of course, we've had a ton of content that's covered this topic since, the early 2000s. But I think this was maybe one of the first early on ones that kind of put a light on reality TV and how it can affect not just the people in the show, but the people watching it and their obsession and what the extent they'll go to. Which leads to one of the little mishaps they had in this movie was being that this thing was in a dome, supposedly 100% sealed, but yet somebody flew in, parachuted in, so I'm not quite sure how that happened, but okay. That was just minor. That was all for a joke that they did. And this is, for me, where the one flaw comes in. This movie tried to be kind of a comedy, and I know sometimes a little bit of comic relief can go a long way any drama to relieve tensions at certain times, but I kind of almost felt that this movie didn't need the dry, sarcastic humor that they threw at it. This was almost like it was almost written for Jim Carrey. He's done a few movies I've enjoyed, but it almost, yeah, I know they were kind of making a mockery of it, and it was part of it, but I think they were actually putting a spotlight on something that was essentially could have been coming down the road, and a little bit of comedy, and it could, I think, would have worked, for me anyway, but they kind of turned this into almost more of a comedy than a drama or science fiction. I wouldn't even put it in science fiction. I mean, I know they were saying this was a make-believe town and this, but really this was more of a drama and more of a, what-if kind of scenario, or a warning maybe even for the future. So, I would like to see him cut back a little bit on the comedy. I know that's what Jim Carrey's known for, but he has played a few somewhat serious roles and done very well. And there were parts that I did like very much. Yeah, I did like the build-up. I did enjoy seeing him trying to figure out what was real, what wasn't, So, and I was happy with the ending. I was glad to see that if anybody's not seen it, which I'm sure that's not the case, I was happy to see the happy ending that he got his escape. So that was nice. Oh, and it also kind of covered, too, an aspect we don't hear much of, the people controlling the show. We've seen that a lot of them typically are pretty egotistical. They like the power of being able to control what's going on the show. And this guy had done it for 30 years, so obviously he was having a serious power trip and didn't want to let go, and he even acted like he felt like he was the guy's father. But anyway, very interesting concept. Overall, I did enjoy it. I gave it, an okay. Maybe, a 6 or 7 out of 10. Anyway, back to that. KD9, that's okay.
All right, thank you, Sean. Boy, lots of juicy stuff there. I took a bunch of notes on there, so I've got something to talk about, too. Next up is Bill, W5DLT. Bill says he saw, I think he said 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Bill, did you see just that amount, or was there more, or did I misunderstand from KE5 ICX?
Yeah, sorry, Tom. 42 minutes and 25 seconds. So 42 minutes, 25 seconds. I'm not sure if it would help being able to see. I don't know where I was in 1998. I do know where I was, but somehow I missed this. And I didn't read anything about this movie, and so I was pretty lost and pretty bored, and shut it off, and then I went back and read some reviews. So everybody's job tonight is to convince me to go back and give this film a try. It just didn't grab my interest, and obviously hearing what everybody said tonight and reading things about it on the internet, and yeah, I know I was clueless back in 1998. I guess I don't know how I missed this thing. It just didn't get my attention, and
Bill, I think we lost you. Were you done?
Sorry about that. I think I timed out. What I was going to say is, I don't know if being blind had something to do with this, but it just didn't grab my interest on the film, and I was lost and just kind of quit watching. W5DLT.
Okay, thank you, Bill. I have to think about that one a little bit. I'll try and respond a little bit later because there are visuals, but I didn't think it was, well, let me mull that one over a little bit. Let's go down the list. I've got AC5DL, Dave in Louisville. Dave in Louisville, welcome back. What did you think about the plot from KE5 ICX?
This is Dave, AC5DL in Louisville. So did you like this week's Afterglow movie, The Truman Show? I know I did. Most movies with Jim Carrey in them are just plain silly, but this movie has him playing a more serious role. The plot reminded me of something out of another TV series called The Prisoner, except the main character in this movie was called Truman Burbank, and the guy in The Prisoner was just called Number 6. But as Juliet would say, what's in a name? Did you ever wonder what was going on in one of the Afterglow movies? I know I have. When I started watching this movie, I didn't know what to expect. I was hoping to see some sci-fi elements in it, and when I saw something falling from the sky and crashing onto the ground, I thought it might have been a Russian satellite. But I was disappointed to find out that it was only a stage light. But this wasn't just any stage light, since an announcer on the radio in his car said it was part of an airplane. That was strange. Then I started realizing that the plot of this movie was about a guy stuck living in a town that was a big soundstage, and that it was all part of a big TV series that was in its 13th season. And to top things off, I don't think he had ever been paid for a single episode. Maybe that's part of the reason he wanted to escape to the island of Fiji. If you stuck it out to watch the rest of this movie, you know things got even stranger. Truman tries to escape his town, but he's met with challenges. When he tries to escape in a bus trip to Chicago, the bus driver destroys the transmission of the bus trying to shift it into gear. Do you ever wonder why more people don't know how to drive a manual transmission? I know I do. And when he tries to drive out of town, he's returned home by a team of guys in hazmat suits. Did you ever wonder why they just didn't send out a rover balloon to return him back home like in The Prisoner? I know I did. In the end, Truman chooses total freedom from his fake world while punching a hole in the perimeter of his stage set with a sailboat. He presses a button called Exit on the side of the set and walks away. Did you ever wonder why they didn't label that button ESC like the escape button on the keyboard on your computer? I know I did. So would I watch this movie again? I don't know. And how do I know I'm not already watching it right now? This is AC5DL, and I turn things back to the net.
That's obvious. This is Andy Rooney, and we're talking like it's a television show that you're living in, and you're giving me yes. All right. In the immortal words of Andy Rooney, I will say this. Do you ever wonder why? I wonder why. Okay. Good comments, though. Next up, and here's a guy who likes to take notes. W5EVB. David? What are your thoughts? This is one of those thoughtful films I know you've got some comments for. So please, go ahead from KE5. I see it.
Well, thanks, Tom. And I have to admit my days of copious note-taking for Afterglow movies are long gone. So most of it's just off the cuff now. But yeah, this is a great movie. I've seen it many times, and it's you know, in that genre of okay, what's real, and I have this sense that something is a little off kind of movie, and you can generally kind of divide them into totally internal, like in your mind, like The Matrix, or somewhat in between internal and external, like Dark City. But The Truman Show is more external events, external actors, external environments, and so it's his own mind though that he's trying to figure things out, and he's getting all of the evidence that something is amiss. And of course, when Sirius fell out of the sky, you know, detached from the firmament, there should have been a deluge of water to follow, but there wasn't. So that should have been a clue too. But yeah, this is a good movie, and there's some other tells which are kind of tongue-in-cheek, like the sun and the moon aren't right. There's one shot, and some of them are real quick shots too, with the quarter moon was right next to the setting sun, which of course cannot happen. And you know, some other things that if he knew a little more about astronomy, that would have immediately told him that something is really not right here. And yeah, it is interesting, like in the travel office, the wild animals and gangs. And now, interestingly, if he went to England, and I just now found this out, there are no wild animals that can hurt you. No snakes, no bears, no poisonous insects, no mountain lions. That is a safe bet. If you want to travel, he should have gone to England. W5EBB.
All right, thank you, David. Good comments. Let's see. Next up is Billy, KF5PDS. Billy, you saw the film. What do you think about the plot from KE5 ICX?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this film. I've watched it many times. I'm kind of the person who wants to, if I catch it in the middle, I tend to not watch it because I like to watch it from the beginning and see the whole thing play out. It really takes you on this whole journey. And I'm with Tony. I totally agree about how the suspense just keeps building and building with every attempt that Truman makes to escape. They have to get more and more elaborate with how they thwart his plans. So I think the plot is very evenly paced. I don't think there's any part in there where it really drags or gets, you know, slow or anything. I think it's good switching between the internal Truman Show and the external world, so there's a good balance there. I think it's a very good plot, and it's a very thought-provoking film, so it is definitely one that I will keep watching as often as it comes on, especially if it's just starting, then I'm more apt to watch it rather than if it's mostly played out. But if there's, you know, if I'm in the mood, I will watch it no matter where it is. But I do enjoy watching it from the very beginning to see how the whole thing develops. So with that, I'll return it to you. This is KF5PDS, back to net.
All right, thank you, Billy. Thanks for those comments. And we're at the bottom of the list. I will go ahead and, before I make my comments, see if there's anyone else out there that would like to check in. Tonight's movie is The Truman Show from 1998, considered a popular and successful film. Does anyone else would like to check in? Please come to your call sign name and did you see the film? Okay, well, go ahead and I'll make my comments. First off, a couple of things. Thanks to all of you. It's really nice. When you're net control, it's great because you can take notes off of other people and then you can comment off of things that you probably should have taken notes on in the first place and wouldn't remember otherwise. So you get to be the grand poobah when you give your comments. So I'm going to get a chance to do that based on some of the comments that people have already said. Let me see. This was a first viewing for me. I had never seen this film until last night. This is one of those that I'm thinking about. It has that slow burn where you kind of keep going back to the film and all the different ramifications. And from the description that I gave, which came from Wikipedia about all the different genres and angles to look at the film and the philosophies that go along with it, existentialism, simulated reality, surveillance, metaphysiology, privacy, reality television, and you put them all together into a motion picture, you've got something that has legs and has a lot of discussion possibilities and angles, which I think is really great. These are the kind of movies that I really like the most. The thought-provoking ones that keep you thinking about them, maybe not even just after the movie, but years later, decades later. This is one of them. I'll probably go into my up in the upper third list. It's not perfect in the sense that it's something that I think is just fantastic. This premise has been around for a long time, and it indeed, Dave mentioned it with The Prisoner as a series, and I was going to mention that one, a favorite of mine, as a television series. There's also another one which I mention frequently that wasn't shown here in the United States, but in New Zealand, called This Is Not My Life. And if you get a chance to see it, it is available on YouTube. I believe at least some of the episodes. Watch one or two of them, and I think you'll be intrigued. It's quite an interesting psychological study, much like this film. There were some mentions about, is it a comedy vehicle for Jim Carrey? Well, Jim Carrey's roots are with comedy, and yeah, there is that. There are many comedians, particularly stand-up comedians, that moved into motion pictures, first comedies, and then into more scripted, straight drama. And they typically do a really good job. And I think Carrey did fine. He does have a tendency to pull you out of it a little bit, although I shouldn't talk about that. That's the next round. But he does that mischievous smile. But his character is obviously split between the reality and going insane. So that is a major part of this thing. The thing that strikes me, and it's just kind of a side comment, is that, you know, technology creates an artificial world. We live in an artificial world. We live in an environment with lighting at night and air conditioning, and we don't get wet because we can go inside. We've got technology. We're talking to one another over long distances right now as though we're in the same room together. I mean, the technology has created this kind of artificial world for us, and then we act and react to it to a point where it's just pretty much just normal for us. And I think I find it quite fascinating when I see a film young adults, and I see all the convention, the technology, the clothes and everything that go around it, and I say, and today I say, geez, it's so artificial. No, that was normal for us then, and now we've moved into the future. So in the process of that, we have our own artificial reality that comes out of it. And one of the things that is quite interesting, just as a side note, that kind of lends credence to the Truman Show, maybe in a reverse angle, is how many people believe that they never went to the moon, right? For those of us who were there and saw the landing on the moon, saw the space program happen and grow and mature and become from the, I don't remember the Mercury flights, I remember the Gemini flights, and then the Apollo missions, and it was a natural progression. It made sense to me, and then when they landed on the moon, it all worked. But for people who didn't live through that and just see this through videos, and they think it's this elaborate conspiracy, and they're all younger people that didn't live through it, mostly, not completely or exclusively, but mostly. So views and the way we see reality is different for individuals from different time periods and from different perspectives of growing up. I think that's really an interesting part, and that kind of is an essential part of what we're talking about here. And so it's got that element in it as well. What's normal for him and what's reality for him is different, as is Christoph and his whole thing. He talks as though he's a father and as Christ, one off on Christ, which is his name, right? And I think that's really interesting and quite intriguing. And it lends itself to a lot of discussion and thought. So I'll go back to this movie, much like I did with Blade Runner when I first saw that. I've always mentioned that I didn't know what I was watching the first time around, and I wasn't quite sure I really liked it, although I did like this film on the first round. But that film I wasn't sure if I liked it. I was still confused, and I watched it a second time, and I started to get into the vibe, and today, now it's one of my favorite films, probably in my top 5, that I enjoy watching over and over and over and over again, because I always find something new, intriguing in this world building. And this one, I think, is going to do pretty much the same. Okay, I have meandered all over the place, so let's go ahead and go back to the top. We'll discuss characterization. I apologize, I think I kind of got into characterization a little bit, but you can use whatever I've got, or call me all wet, that's perfectly fine. We'll start at the top with Tony, NT5TM. Characterization and acting, what do you think? From KE5, ICX.
Well, mostly very good thoughts. This is an extremely this is science fiction because, it's like the Glass Fortress or something. They're living in a completely artificial world, which is inherently science fictional. Except, we don't see ray guns or warp drive. We never worry about the dilithium crystals. The science fictional element of this movie is entirely expressed by the work of the characters. I think generally they did a fantastic job. Jim Carrey always seems on the edge of going completely nuts, and I'm going to apologize because I have forgotten so many actors and actresses' names. His wife threatens him with a potato masher. I remember they're having an argument. And if I were a police officer responding to a domestic dispute, the least logical thing I would ever expect to hear one of the participants say was, she didn't actually say I need to talk to my agent, but how can I continue working under these conditions? It's unprofessional. People don't say that. So some movies we talk about the actors did their very best with the horrible material they were given. And in this movie, I think the actors did their very best with really thoughtful material. Oh, yeah, the bird is staying up late. This always happens on Saturday. Aaron's in the shower, I'm on the radio, and he's squawking because I'm talking to something else. Hi, Ferdinand. The actors really did their best, and as their characters have an increasingly false note, the bell, it's like a wooden nickel or a bell that doesn't seem to be ringing on quite the right pitch. As the movie goes on, they seem to be more and more false. And that is just perfect characterization. They say things people wouldn't say. They do things people wouldn't do. They finally end up, walking arm in arm and in evidence search lines that are so close we wouldn't even do that insert. Just standing there, marching through the town square and up and down streets. Their characters are finally gone, and the falsehood of the entire movie, the entire situation is revealed. So it is sort of a things fall apart. The characters fall apart. And the way in which the characters are written fits that idea perfectly, and the way in which the actors perform fits perfectly. I think it's pretty impressive. I think they did a great job. And I was very happy with the way the characters fit together in this movie. NT5TM.
Hi, thank you, Tony. Another set of really good comments. Next up, Sean, KB9SOK. Your thoughts on characterization and acting from KE5, ICX.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Just as a side note, this was actually the first time I'd seen this film as well. Not sure how I missed it. I remember hearing about it, but back in the 90s, life was kind of crazy. But anyway, yeah, I agree with what Tony said there. He covered it very well, actually. thought the actors did a really good job. It was, I do believe, very well written. As Tony pointed out, the little things that people really wouldn't say in real life, but kind of passed by Truman because he didn't know any better. But then as the movie went on, he slowly started to notice these weird little comments that just didn't make sense. And that was obviously one of the clues that led him down the road of eventually figuring it out. So I think, I wouldn't want to call these stereotypical characters because they were essentially people playing other people, but they did it very well. It does bring us some thoughts, though, as I was sitting here thinking about it, is you had to, if they were ever actually trying to do something in real life, it would be, could you imagine that, try to write a contract, hey, are you good for the next 30 years doing a thing? So, anyway, could you truly dedicate yourself to the thing? The best friend probably might be had it the easiest, but, his fake wife, well, if he's his wife, there's other things that happen. How would you ever get somebody to agree to do that? So anyway, it's kind of funny to actually think about the consequences if they actually did try to do this. But no, I thought the actors did very well. I actually thought Jim Carrey did very well. Earlier, my knock on the comedy part wasn't on him because, I think that comic actors, to be honest, don't get the credit they ultimately deserve, to be quite honest. They don't. Always the drama actors get all the glory, but in reality, comedy is very, 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 very difficult to make it look natural. But for me, just kind of the comedy part, to me, I just felt that they took it too far. And obviously, I can see why they picked Jim Carrey because he is very expressive. But as you alluded to earlier, Tom, that at times it kind of took you out of it, for me anyway. As I got invested in the story, then as they kind of started to get more comedic as the show went on, it started to at times kind of take you out of the whole thing a little bit, and you stopped taking it as seriously. So for me, this is the reason I wouldn't put this in the excellent movie pile, so I just put it in the good. For me, but this, me personally, I know obviously the rest of the group seems to put this in the excellent, which I could totally get. But yeah, overall, I like these characters. I cared about these characters. I was rooting for Truman to escape, to figure it out. You had to feel, if this would really happen to somebody, it'd be horrible. Have your life that controlled. So you definitely was rooting for the guy. And after a while, you almost started to dislike the other characters in the movie because essentially they were staying in this paid role to keep tricking him. Even when he started to figure it out, you would think that at some point, his fake, maybe real best friend, but at some point would finally just say, I can't do this anymore to this poor guy. But they didn't really explore that too much, and I think that could have been interesting. But overall, I thought it was the actors did really good, and good characterization and good writing on their parts. So anyway, back to that, KB9SOK.
Also good comments, and thanks. I kind of felt the same way. I'll elaborate later. Next up is Bill, W5BLT. I'm still trying to figure it out. It might have to do with the expressions, potentially, what the characters are doing, because it is character-driven. I don't know. That may be what it is. I'm trying to figure out what the missing element is visually for you, Bill. They're acting for television, so there's an artificiality to it, I guess, that Truman picks up on. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But I'll let you go ahead and speak your mind on characterization, Bill. W5DOT from KE5 ICX.
Okay, thanks, Tom. I think, I love The Prisoner, and I think it was Dave, maybe I'm getting the person confused, sorry, that made reference to that. And looking back on it as a little kid, my mom had described some things in that movie or TV show. And later on, my daughter discovered it, and she said, I think Dad would really love this movie, TV show. And I said, oh, yeah, I watched that. And so my daughter has described things, and there are some of those episodes where being blind, you don't really know what's going on. And so both my mom and daughter filled in those gaps. And I think that might be the same thing here, and probably on this one, I would have probably enjoyed it.
Strange, we lost you again, Bill. You said you probably would enjoy it, then you were gone. W5DLT, did we lose you? I have a feeling you went off frequency.
Oh, sorry. I think what's happening, I got to go back in and figure out why this radio is timing out. Anyway, what I was going to say is they described things to me, and I think based on what you all have filled in, I'll try to get past that 42-minute, 25-second mark and give this movie another go. W5BLT.
All right, thank you, Bill. Bill, since you can't hear your own transmission, you're weaker than you normally are into the repeater, so I just thought I'd mention that. Maybe there's something up with your antenna, SWR or something. You might want to take a gander outside and patch your antenna later on and see what might be happening. I suspect that might have something to do with it. I don't know. Next up, Dave, AC5DL, or as we like to call him, you ever wonder why, Andy Rooney. Go ahead with your thoughts on characterization.
Okay, thank you, Tom. AC5DL here. In terms of characterization, I don't have a whole lot to add to what some of the others have said. I thought it was interesting reading about this movie that Robin Williams was originally considered for the role of Truman, but they did not cast him in that role, and it probably ended up being a good choice for Tim Carey just because he was trying to get out of being typecast for all comedy roles, and I think he did a great job in this. Another person I thought that did a very good job was Ed Harris in the role of the director in the movie. I thought he did a really good job. But other than that, I don't have a whole lot more about characterization. So I guess I'll go ahead and pass it on to others who have much more good comments than mine on that. So anyhow, this is AC5DL. Back to Nick.
Thank you, Dave. That's perfectly fine. I get it. Next up, David, W5BBB. Your thought on characterization and acting from KE5 ICS.
Yeah, I thought Jim Carrey did a really good job. He did sort of, he was halfway comedic sometimes and halfway trying to be, a real actor, and he kind of blended that. As some others had said, it was a little off-putting at times when he'd just get into his In Living Color kind of crazy Jim. But one movie where he was a pretty good, just straight actor was The Majestic. I thought that was a good movie that he was in. And yeah, Ed Harris as Christoph Ed Harris usually is a reliable actor, and he did well in this part as the kind of bipolar entity. Sometimes a caring father. Stop the transmitter there. a caring father, and then other times a cruel, manipulative force in what's his name, Truman's life. But overall, the characters, you have to talk about the characters kind of indirectly because they're characters being characters. And they were forced to not break character when a few of them started becoming empathetic as Truman starts to figure things out. And back in the 90s, the gaslighting had not become part of the lexicon again, but that's what they were having to do. They were having to gaslight Truman, and sometimes it was a very uncomfortable situation, but they were paid actors getting a salary to play their part and not break character. But yeah, it was the characters were good, and like others had said, the tension was building, and ultimately, you know, things resolved. But yeah, good acting and a good ensemble. W5EBB.
Very good. Next up is Billy, KF5 PDS. Billy, your thoughts on characterization and acting?
Yeah, I agree with what David said. It was Jim Carrey was a great choice for the role. I didn't realize that Robin Williams had been considered, but that also would have been a good choice because he has his own brand of zany comedy and is heavy dramatic, you know, acting. Although Robin Williams, I think, is a much deeper dramatic actor than Jim is, but Jim was perfect for this role. I think it was the blend of, you know, the comedy and the way he generates sympathy. He can really make you feel sympathetic for his characters. So I think ultimately that Jim Carrey was the perfect choice for Truman. And then everyone else was great. I believe it was Laura Linney that played his wife, Meryl. I love how she would like stop and do all the product placement commercials. And Truman was like, who are you talking to? You know, when he's really questioning things, and he started noticing more about how his friends and wife and everybody were acting. He started looking more at them, I think starting to see them more as actors rather than genuine people in his life, which even made him question his life and situation even more. But I didn't see him start to question things until the holes started appearing, you know, when the light fell out of the sky, and also when the radio station kind of conked out and he could hear them doing the production directions, and he was watching it happen as he was hearing it over the radio, and then somebody realized, hey, we got to turn the dial, and they put the radio station back on, and the perfectly timed traffic jam to keep him from going the way he wanted to go. Just things like that are just, you know, are more clues that he's living in an artificial environment. But yeah, I just thought the casting was very well done for all of the actors playing roles in Truman's life. Very well cast. Characterization was very well fleshed out in the 2 hours of the movie. They did a lot of character development in that short period of time for a feature-length film, so I thought that was really impressive. And overall, just very well done. So with that, I'll return it to you, Tom. This is KFI PDS. Back to net.
Okay, thank you, Billy and all. Does anyone else want to check in? We're talking about the Truman Show from 1998. Anyone else want to check in? Please come to the call center. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and give my comments. First off, I had to go back and look and see who all was in this, and all of these people are A-list actors. I mean, they have a long list of Emmy and Academy Award nominations. There's even Royal Enling is listed in here as 5 Tony Award nominations, Screen Actors Guild, 2 Golden Globes, 4 Primetime Emmys. I mean, he's not lightweight people, and I've always been a fan of Ed Harris. His tendency to play the same character, but I like his character. This one was done with some subtlety at the end that was both creepy and comforting at the same time, which I think is the kind of guy, this is the guy that can play that kind of role. Emmerich, another one, did a lot of stuff in one of our favorite films, Frequency, he was in. And Super 8, which is also known, but there's plenty of others in here. So really a bunch of A-list actors in this production. The fact that Brian De Palma was asked to direct at first was an interesting choice and would have been great, but Ware is no lightweight either. He did Gattaca, so I think that you can see that the production overall, these actors were given a So I think, and it really shows in this thing, and as I keep thinking about it again, it's growing on me. I'm going to go back and watch this again. I'm not quite sure when, but soonish, and watch this with a new eye, mainly on the acting performances, because that's what makes this thing work. There's gimmicks, yes, but the reality is that they're creating an artificial reality inside of an artificial reality, Bill Bond style. So keep that in mind. And so you have to make it convincing but fake at the same time, which I think is brilliant. I mean, really think about that. How far do you go? And the thing is, what makes it work in the end is, of course, Ed Harris's character, Christoph, he comes off as authentic at the end, which is creepy. He gets the final word in this thing. So he gets to come off as the bad guy turned good guy towards being the Father Christ image type of thing, and he plays in the edges that you would expect from the 24/7 producer of this hectic television show suddenly has a warm side to him, we think. And that he has a clear affection, as he would his son, with Truman. And I think that's really interesting, and that's the final beat of the movie, which leaves you thinking, is it or isn't it? I like it. I like that idea, and it's going to continue to kind of weigh on me a little bit as I continue to analyze this film and start thinking about all the different angles that it produces. So, yep, it's got me thinking. Okay, third round, final round. We may end early, but we've had really good discussion this evening. So let's go and start at the top. Tony, NT5TM, you get to talk about technical aspects of the film or anything we may have missed along the way from NT5TM from KE5ICX.
Sure. I really did love the music. It was a great extra character. The only thing I did cheat and look up on Wikipedia was that Philip Glass was apparently one of the keyboardists who was pretending to provide live accompaniment. There was a surprising amount of Mozart in this movie. Yay. They did a really good job of picking totally appropriate music, whether we know who it came from or not. One of the fun things Aaron would like to add about this movie was when the young woman that Truman fell in love with calls in to the call-in show, and she talks about how sincerely she is worried about Truman, and he interprets that completely through the lens of, you're just doing that for engagement. You just want to be as famous as I am. You must be fake because you are just looking for attention. He cannot understand that anyone would actually care about something and have a real opinion or real feelings about it. That is, in fact, his experience. His fame and notoriety comes as this fake synthetic parent of a character in a TV show. He cannot believe anyone would really stand for something, anyone would really feel something. And that is something that Aaron found very striking because it's a continuing problem in our modern world as well. Do you actually have principles, or are you just trying to get rage clicks, on Instagram or whatnot? So this movie was certainly very prescient in that way, in this, not just is Truman's world real, but is sincerity real? Do people really have lives and really have goals? We don't know. So I thought the movie was, we didn't depend on a lot of special effects. I thought the music was great. It was certainly well photographed. And I wanted to relay Aaron's comment there about, Christoph being unable to relate to anyone who really cared about something, because I thought that is a really relevant question in the modern world. NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. Good observations. Again. KB9SOK, Sean, you're up next from KG5. ICS.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Everybody's making great comments tonight on this. Really enjoyed the conversation. As usual, it's not surprised there. I agree. The production values were good, of course. The music was decent. It definitely fit the parts. I did notice the music at different times, but when it was meant to be noticed, which is the important difference there. A lot of times you have movies that do have good music, but you don't notice it because it just truly blends. But this one did do both. So, they did a good job there as well. As you said, there's already not a lot as far as special effects in this one. It's not that kind of science fiction show. But just, to kind of echo what Tony said about, people truly caring. And I do think that, yes, our producer is very surprisingly, I think they very well predicted the future of a lot of these reality shows. Because a lot of them do get into that. I remember seeing some interviews of an old show, Deadliest Catch, which is still on today, but it's very different than what it used to be. When the first season of that show was a real reality show, they wanted to film the final season of the Derby before they did away with the Derby type of fishing. And everything was pretty authentic. There was nothing was scripted. No one was forced to say anything. And then as the show went on, the producers started to try to push agendas onto the captains and trying to get scenarios to happen, trying to get certain things to be said to where it started not to be authentic. And a couple of the captains did actually stand up and refused. In interviews later, said they refused to do that. They didn't care if they asked them 100 or 1,000 times the same question. They would not change their answer or want to do something that they wanted them to do. And unfortunately, as time went on, a few of those captains disappeared off the show for obvious reasons. How far will producers go? Pretty far, we were finding out in a lot of these, especially those dating shows. They're notorious for, pushing things way too far. I thought this movie did a great job of showing what could happen, and it has happened. So it's very well predicted. I do think that the producer, was played very, very, very well. Probably one of the stronger characters in this whole thing. Anyway, overall, enjoyed it. Like I said, I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. I would recommend it. Would I watch it again? Yeah, maybe 3 to 5 years down the road, I'd watch it again. I don't know I'd watch it tomorrow, but it might be interesting to see if I had a different take later. Anyway, as always, enjoyed it. Back to net, KB9SOK.
Hi, thank you, Sean. And 3 to 5 years, we'll call you on that. So in 3 years, we're going to ask you, have you gone back and watched the Truman Show yet? And you'll say no, and then we'll just keep bugging you every week until you watch it. Next up, bet you got 3 years to wait. Next up is Bill, W5BLT. Bill, your final comments, and if you've got anything else you want to mention, or if this reminds you of anything since you didn't see the whole film, by all means, bring it up. Sometimes that side discussion, that sidebar is really interesting. So go ahead from KE5, ICX.
Okay, and I've switched. Normally I could sit out in my living room with the HT, but obviously tonight it's not working, so I'm back in the ham shack. So hopefully this mobile radio is doing better. As I was saying before, I think it helped having you guys fill in the gaps, and there's a lot I missed visually in some of these films, and especially I think it helps to read the plot summaries maybe on a movie like this, and I would have been a little more up to speed. I mean, I kind of understood it was a reality tape, but I think it was just hard to always know what was happening and why, and so now I'm kind of more up to speed. You know, we talk about the 90s and the Big Brother and things like that. I do remember we were all very fascinated with the webcams and people filming their lives, and they have the cameras in the house, and we check in on them to see what was going on. And so that brought back some interesting memories that I'd kind of forgotten about that Sean was talking about on you know, when the internet was really first kind of, I won't say taking off, because obviously it had been around for those of us who were into computers and stuff, but when it really became commonplace. And that brings back some kind of memories of watching those, you know, different people that would put stuff out. And then, of course, I remember when we could get on the internet and watch the different cameras in the streets and stuff, at the street corners and stuff. That was kind of new. And, of course, being able to get the satellite photographs of your yard and house and stuff when that came into being, and that was really kind of fascinating. And even for me, as somebody who can't see, I find all that very interesting. So, yeah, that's all I got. I will go back and give this movie another go, and I do appreciate everybody giving me feedback, because, you know, with this net, it really does help to fill in some of this stuff, and I think in this case, that's what I needed. Back to you, Tom, W5BLT.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Thank you always for your comments. I appreciate it. Next up is Dave, AC5DL, Andy Rooney himself. What say you? Final comments on anything you want? It can be technical in nature, or it can be something we missed in the previous round. Whatever you like, from KE5 ICX.
Thank you, Tom. AC5DL here. You know, I think one of the things that I thought in the way of special effects that was really great in this movie was that I noticed early on in the movie they had two characters that appeared to be twins, and I was amazed at how well they did a digital copy of this one person. He looked exactly like the other person standing there, and even you know, even Jim Carrey even made the comment about giving him a doppelganger discount or whatever, and I thought that was really amazing how well they digitally copied one of the characters. I noticed sound effects in this. I think my favorite sound effect had to be the grinding of the gears in the bus. I was trying to figure out what kind of transmission and engine it was, but it was a really good special effect. And the other one I remembered, or I thought was great, was how they created the waves. When he was out in the ocean and, the waters got all high and all that kind of stuff, and it made me wonder, did they do those in a Hollywood big tank, or did they go out to Hurricane Harbor and do some filming out there? But anyhow, those are my thoughts on some of the other things in the movie that I thought were good. So that's all I got for this round. It's AC5DL back to net.
All right, thank you, Dave, for your comments. Let me respond to that before I forget, and it's simply this. Don't forget, these are people that make movie magic talking about making movie magic. So who better to tell you how to make waves and storms and things like that than people in Hollywood, right? I'll tell you a story when it's my turn on that. Next up is David, W5EBB. Your final comments, anything you want, technical nature or something we missed on the first two rounds.
Well, thanks, Tom, for running the net again. I guess the one thing I would add is the environment was so sterile and orderly and antiseptic, if that's a word to use. It didn't look like real grass. It looked like AstroTurf, and everything was just in the right place. But the Truman character would not have known that there was anything off about that. And having lived in a more rural environment with, not things more natural and not quite so orderly. When I go to a big city now, like Azle, or Dallas or Austin, everything is so structured, everything's paved, everything is done and engineered just right, and I begin to see the artificiality of many urban environments now that I was used to, but now it's something somewhat novel. And I'm actually looking to go to another big city, Lake Worth, and maybe see Disclosure Day next week. I haven't seen a movie in a real movie theater in years, and I hope it's worth the hype. It will at least be worth it to hear John Williams, possibly his last score. But we'll see. W5EBB.
Yeah, thanks, David. I think he came out of retirement to do this. I think will be his final movie. I saw pictures of him. He is getting along in years, as we all are, but he got his beat by a few. Next up is Billy, KF5PDS. Billy, your final comments. Whatever you'd like from KE5 ICX.
Yeah, just a couple of last things. I too really enjoyed the music. I thought it was great to go with the minimalist music to go with what David was mentioning as the very sterile environment that Truman lived in. The music was a perfect pairing, and I enjoy Philip Glass's music anyway, but I thought it was a perfect pairing, a choice for the film. And going back to characters in the control room, I didn't really mention any of those characters, but we're talking, Tom, about award-winning actors. Remember, Paul Giamatti was one of the control room directors, and so who did an excellent job there because he was really feeling for Truman and really wanting to do right by him. And there was a time when he was actually in tears, pleading with Christoph over how to do right by Truman. So don't forget Paul Giamatti was in there too, also a very highly acclaimed actor. So again, thanks for running the net, Tom. It's been a great discussion. So I'll return it to you. This is KF5PDS, back to net.
All right. Well, thank you, Billy. It's nice having you here. We had you 2 weeks in a row. I know you're very busy, but we really like it when you're here. As is David. He's infrequent, but when he's here, it's a real pleasure. So you guys bring a lot of fidelity. And David, AC5DL, you all bring some wonderful fidelity and unique perspectives to things. I really enjoy that. My final comments. I am a huge fan of the Philip Glass Palascati score that we were listening to. What you heard was called Anthem. It appeared in that film, which is about Life Out of Balance. It's the second in the Palascati series, where Glass did compose for all three movies. And I don't want to say Nagasaki, Nagasaki, I think it's called. Another in that kind of documentary film without any words. Really interesting stuff. I love that music. I've got it on my playlist when I run. There's nothing better than to listen to that when the sun is coming up in the morning, let me tell you. Really cool. Let's see. I was going to mention the artificiality thing, which is really kind of interesting. Just as an aside, one of the people that I followed before the big crash with Facebook, and I had to start everything from scratch, there was a fellow, and I can't think of his name right now, who worked on a series called The Orville, which most of you would know is a science fiction series. He also worked on a television series, I think on HBO, with a typical mobster type of thing, wealthy type. And he had to create the illusion. He did special effects, practical effects, and he created this this mansion in a parking lot that was next to a golf course. And the secret was that, it was meant to be a wealthy mobster who lived on a golf course, but they didn't have access to a home in order to do that. He built a small pool. It looked like a full-size pool, but it was only 1.5 foot deep. And created this illusion, created the flats for the house. It made it look real, put the lawn furniture out, put grass in, all this stuff. And they photographed this thing, and it looked like the real deal. You would swear that it was real. So these guys are amazing that they could do that. So I can see the plausibility of doing something like this in this film, in the Truman Show. They do it all the time. Create imagination, which is really interesting. The other thing, too, is the small town thing vibe, which is we were talking about in the planned communities. Having moved from Dallas down to, like David did, to a much smaller town, it's a different experience, and your interaction with people is different. I know people here now, after being here now almost 2 years, and I know people, with the exception of the ham community, which is sort of a microcosm, and I know a lot of you up there fairly well, but having been down here and running into the same people all the time, yes, it's 320,000 people, which is not exactly small, but I'm running into the same people all the time. I ran yesterday, I ran to the NAS base, which is about, what is it? There are all sorts of people I knew, and waving at them and saying hi by name and all of that, which is really kind of amazing. If you come from a small town and you go to a big city, you lose that, and then when you come from a big city to a small town, you gain that certain awareness. Plus, they know all about you, too, which is quite fascinating. So something under 310, 20,000 people, I can imagine. And so there's the Truman part of that too, you know? The intimacy and the regularity with people that seems somewhat artificial, but could be plausible, really, when you think about it. And never leaving a town. There are people like that. One thing that was interesting, too, is at different times. My father, before he passed on, he showed me a birth certificate of his father and the death certificate. In the same house that he died in, 60 years later. I think that's kind of an amazing thing in a mobile society when you think about it. And is that possible? Doesn't seem really probable, and it isn't today, but it might have been at one time. Generations living together in that. A whole different reality. I don't know, just intriguing. It makes you think about, this movie it centers you on perspective and what that means, and I think that's really one of the cool outputs from the film. I'll go back and watch it again. All right, next week's movie. Are you ready? By the way, don't forget, we will be doing the Afterglow movie in person. I am coming up to Dallas, so I'll be there with you to watch Back to the Future on, what day is it? I should know this. On the 27th. The 27th at 10:30. In lieu of the net, we will watch Back to the Future, the original film. Should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, let's see here. What was I going to say? Next movie is going to be Labyrinth from 1986. When a baby step-brother is taken by the Goblin King on her watch, I think it is puppets, a team must solve a treacherous labyrinth to rescue the child before midnight. So the movie is Labyrinth. It's free on Tubi TV. You'll find it, and I will send out the links to it if you sometime tomorrow, probably in the morning. So that's it from here. I want to say 7-3 to everybody. Thank you all, and we managed to get through Skywarn unscathed and continuous with both nets, which was good. Hope you guys continue to do fine, and hopefully the weather will improve. We've needed the rain down here for quite a while, so I'm very happy that it's been raining, and I run through rainstorms down here too, which is kind of a bizarre and interesting thing as well. So with that, good night, and we'll do this again next week. This is KE5, ICX.